Hi, Andy here at the Bike Insurer, and this is our guide on how to refuel your bike, and there's a lot more to it than you might think. So as you approach your petrol station, it's a great time to think about the road around you and what's going on. So you need to remember that the entrance and exits to petrol stations can be slippery. So quite often lorries will fill up with fuel and they'll overfill their tanks and you'll get fuel spillages. So first thing to think about is slow and easy as you approach, and also to bear in mind that people are in a bit of a rush and not really paying attention at petrol stations. So people are treating it like a pit stop. They want to get in and get out as quickly as they can. Just be aware as you're coming in what's going on around you. And as you come in, you've got to pick which pump you're going to go for. So that's actually a considered thought. Are you left-handed or right-handed? So you want to make sure that when you are filling your bike up that you're stable and you're not going to drop it or fall over. You don't want to do that with the petrol cap open. So pick whether you're left-handed or right-handed. So I'm right-handed, which means I always go for a petrol pump which is on the left-hand side of me. And now you've picked your pump and you've pulled up next to it, you now need to do a couple of things. The first is reset the trip on your dash. I always run it on 0 when I refuel. Even though the bike's got a petrol light on it, lots don't, but even though this one does, it gives me an idea about how much fuel I've got left in the tank. The light just tells you on or off, and some bikes now will tell you the range that you've got, but some don't. So good practice is reset the trip so that you can keep an eye on how much fuel you've got in your tank. The last thing to think about before you start refueling is whether you're going to sit on the bike and do it or whether you're going to put it on its side stand. For me, I always sit on the bike. I think the thing's more stable that way. The fuel tank's level as well, and I can make sure that I'm putting the right amount of fuel in and getting the most I can in that bike. And the next thing to think about is the really important question of whether I take my helmet off or not. Now, there are petrol stations out there that insist that bikers do remove their helmets before they go and pay, and before they will allow fuel through to your pump, but many don't. In all my years of biking, and it's about 20 years now, I've only ever been asked over the tannoy in a petrol station to take my helmet off once. It was a bit embarrassing, and of course I did it without any problem, but usually I find it a lot more convenient just to leave my helmet on. There are things that you can do to make the cashiers feel a lot more comfortable about the fact that you're actually going to pay and you're not going to do a runner, and that you're leaving your helmet on and it's just for convenience really, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But for me, I'd always leave my helmet on at this point and I'd begin refueling. Obviously here you open the fuel cap, you put the nozzle inside the filler hole and you begin pumping. First thing to remember here is not to really squeeze the handle as hard as you can. The fuel comes out at a lot higher pressure than you would think, and on a bike, or on a car at least, you don't notice it, but on a bike you do. What will happen is you get a ton of splashback coming back out at you. The last thing you want is any of that in your eye, and that's a possibility. So just take it easy and just take the flow nice and steady. And the other thing is you don't want to cover your petrol tank in fuel. What that can do is it can corrode the lacquer on the paint and it can sort of discolour some of the plastics on your bike. So you finish pouring your fuel into the bike now, and the last thing to do is just give the nozzle a bit of a tap on the side of the hole just to make sure any drips and the residues left goes into the tank, and then you're clear to sort of lift the pump up and put it back in its rack. And then you're good to go. And now is the time to think about how you're going to go in and pay, and this is the important bit really, because you've still got your helmet on. So you need to be considerate, and you need to understand that walking up to a cashier in the petrol station is going to be quite intimidating for them. You just need to remember that make your intentions really clear when you walk in. So before I even walk in, I would have my card that I'm going to pay with in my hand, and I'd be walking in